What if a single stolen loaf of bread wasn't a crime, but a carefully placed match in a room full of old gasoline? Maya's hands didn't shake because she was afraid of the police. They shook because she hadn't eaten enough to remember what full felt like. In a quiet American town that loved charity speeches and hated messy truth, a 15-year-old orphan slipped one small bread roll under her coat, and the whole place decided they finally had proof of what they always believed. She was trouble. But then a librarian stepped forward, calm as a judge, and paid for the bread like it was nothing. That should have been the end. It wasn't. Because when Maya signed her name, she didn't use the surname on her foster records. She wrote Whitmore, slow, deliberate, like she was carving it into stone. And the librarian Evelyn saw it, really saw it. The kind of detail most adults miss because they're too busy being right. And in that moment, the story stopped being about theft and started becoming about inheritance, buried paperwork, and a town that had been protecting the wrong people for a very long time. Before we jump in, hit like if you're ready for a story where the quiet girl isn't the victim people assume. Subscribe for more dramatic life stories with justice that actually lands. And I want you to comment 2 things while you listen. Where are you watching from? City and country. Have you ever been judged for one small moment, while nobody asked what led you there? All right. Watch what happens when a starving orphan and a soft-spoken librarian pull on a thread the whole town prayed would never move. The bakery smelled like warmth and cinnamon, which made it worse. Maya stood near the display case like she belonged there, like she was just another teenager killing time after school, but her eyes kept slipping to the cheapest roll on the bottom shelf, plain, dry, unglamorous, the kind of bread nobody posted pictures of. Behind the counter, the clerk chatted with a customer about weekend plans. A normal conversation, the kind Maya used to imagine she'd have one day. Her stomach answered with a hollow twist, sharp enough to make her throat tighten. At home, the fridge was always being restocked tomorrow. Tomorrow never arrived. Her guardian, Mrs. Harlan, was the type who spoke sweetly in public and sighed loudly in private, as if Maya's existence was an expensive inconvenience. She'd say things like, "You don't need seconds," even when Maya hadn't had firsts. Maya's fingers hovered, then moved. One roll quick under the coat, a tiny theft almost laughable, except hunger didn't laugh. The bell over the door chimed as she stepped out, and a voice snapped like a rubber band. "Hey, stop!" Maya froze. The clerk had seen the corner of the bread wrapper. The customer turned. A man outside looked over like he'd been waiting for an excuse to feel righteous. In minutes, the word stealing hung in the air heavier than any punishment. Someone called the local officer who walked the block. The officer wasn't cruel, just tired. Tired enough to treat Maya like a problem to be filed. Maya didn't beg. She'd learned begging didn't soften adults. It gave them permission to look down harder. Then Evelyn arrived. She wasn't dramatic, no grand entrance. Just a woman in her 40s with a library tote bag and the steady posture of someone who had spent her life watching people quietly. She looked from the bread to Maya's face, and something subtle changed behind her eyes. "How much?" Evelyn asked. The clerk blinked. "Ma'am, I understand," Evelyn said, cutting through the noise without raising her voice. "How much?" She paid right there, cash, no lecture, no performance, just resolution. The officer's shoulders eased like the whole interaction had been exhausting him. "If it's settled, we can let it go," he said, already mentally moving on. Evelyn didn't smile. "Thank you." Maya expected the embarrassment to burn. Instead, she felt something colder, the familiar ache of being seen as less than human. The clerk slid a form across the counter anyway. "Store policy, a record of the incident. Just sign, it's nothing." Maya picked up the pen, her hand shook. She signed slowly. Maya Whitmore. Evelyn's gaze dropped to the name, then lifted back to Maya's face like a door had opened in her mind. "That's not," Evelyn murmured, barely audible. Maya's expression didn't change. Not defiant, not pleading, just flat, like a girl who'd learned that revealing feelings was dangerous. Outside, the air was sharp. Evelyn walked beside Maya without crowding her, matching her pace. "But you're registered as Maya Harlan," Evelyn said softly like she was stating the weather. "But you wrote Whitmore." Maya stopped under a street lamp. The light caught the faint shadows beneath her eyes. "I wrote the name that belongs to me." "Why?" Evelyn asked. Maya's mouth tightened. "Because I needed someone to notice." Evelyn didn't ask if Maya was hungry. She could already tell. She didn't ask why she stole, that was obvious. Instead, she asked the one question that mattered. "Where is your file?" Evelyn said. Maya's eyes flicked toward the library down the street. Brick quiet, overlooked by most people in town. "Public assistance records," Maya answered. "County building. But the copies, they end up in places, if you know where to look." Evelyn swallowed. "And you know where to look?" Maya's voice dropped. "I know where they hide things." And as they stood there, the town kept moving. Cars passing, people laughing, life continuing, completely unaware that a starving girl had just handed a librarian the first breadcrumb in a trail that led straight into the town's prettiest lies. The most dangerous secrets don't live in safes. They live in folders labeled routine. Evelyn sat behind the library's front desk after closing, the building finally quiet enough to hear her own thoughts. She should have been shelving returns. Instead, she was staring at the signature, Maya Whitmore. Names mattered in towns like this. Family names were currency, and Whitmore, that name didn't just belong to someone, it belonged to history. Evelyn pulled out the county's public access portal and began with the obvious searches. Foster placement, guardian assignment, regular check-ins. Everything looked neat. Too neat. The kind of neat that didn't happen by accident. Then she found it. A visitation report dated on a day the county office had been shut down for a winter storm. Another signed document stamped by a clerk who'd retired years earlier. Little seams, tiny errors. Evelyn leaned back, pulse tapping at her throat. People thought librarians dealt in dusty novels and gentle shushing, but Evelyn had spent 20 years learning how information moved, who touched it, who misplaced it, and what it meant when something looked perfect. She printed what she could without leaving a trail too obvious, just enough to compare. Then she went to the old microfilm cabinet in the basement, where the library stored the town's newspapers like bones in a crypt. She threaded the reel with practiced hands. Whitmore estate fire 15 years ago. The headlines were polite. A tragedy, a loss, community mourning, a prominent family struck by misfortune. The article mentioned a child briefly, and then moved on as if even the paper couldn't bear to linger on it. Evelyn stared at the grainy photo. Smoke, a blackened roofline, firefighters looking small against the ruins. Under the photo, one sentence made her mouth go dry. Authorities confirmed no survivors among the immediate household. No survivors. But Maya was standing in Evelyn's library, alive, hungry, and signing Whitmore like a promise. Evelyn's mind flashed to Mrs. Harlan, her guardian, a woman who attended fundraisers with a pearl necklace and a sympathetic smile, always ready with a story about how hard it was to raise a troubled girl. Evelyn had heard the rumors that Maya was ungrateful, manipulative, difficult. The town loved that narrative because it kept everyone comfortable. Evelyn didn't. The next day, she invited Maya to the library under the simplest pretense. "I could use help organizing the archives," she said. "It's paid. Not much, but it's something." Maya showed up 10 minutes early. She moved through the stacks like someone who knew how to disappear. She didn't ask for snacks. She didn't sit like she was relaxing. She worked. Evelyn watched quietly, noticing things most people missed. How Maya's eyes tracked exits, how her shoulders tightened when footsteps approached, how she flinched at the sound of keys. Around mid-afternoon, Evelyn slid a granola bar across the table like it was casual. Maya stared at it, suspicion flickering. "Why?" "Because people can't think straight when they're running on empty," Evelyn said. Maya's fingers curled around the bar, but she didn't open it yet. "You read my file." Evelyn didn't deny it. "I started." Maya's gaze sharpened. "Then you saw the parts that don't fit." "I saw inconsistencies," Evelyn corrected, careful. "Enough to know something is wrong, but not enough to know what." Maya finally opened the wrapper. The sound was loud in the quiet room. She took one bite, small, controlled, and swallowed like she was afraid food might be taken away if she enjoyed it too much. "I'm not crazy," Maya said, "not angry, just tired. They write it in the reports like I am." Evelyn's chest tightened. "I don't think you're crazy." Maya's jaw worked. "Mrs. Harlan says the state pays her to manage me. She manages me by locking the pantry and smiling in church." Evelyn's hands clenched on the desk. "That's neglect." Maya's eyes didn't soften. "That word doesn't change anything." Evelyn hesitated. "It can if it's documented." Maya leaned forward, voice low. "Documentation is what buried me in the first place." That was when Evelyn understood. Maya didn't want comfort. She wanted the truth, clean, provable, undeniable. Not for sympathy, for leverage. Evelyn took a breath. Tell me about Whitmore. Maya looked past her toward the window. It's not a story people tell, she said. It's a story people swallowed. Then slowly, like placing a fragile object on a table, Maya said the thing that made the air feel thinner. I don't need someone to rescue me, she whispered. I need someone to open the right door. And Evelyn, quiet librarian, keeper of records, realized she had spent her whole life believing her job was to preserve history. No, her job was about to become exposing it. Maya didn't act like someone who wanted revenge. That's what made her terrifying. She acted like someone who'd already done the math and simply needed the world to catch up. Evelyn began pulling threads carefully. She didn't storm into the county building accusing people. She requested routine confirmations. She asked for duplicate copies. She used the same gentle tone she used with library patrons who returned books late. And every time she found an answer that was too quick, too smooth, her certainty hardened. One afternoon, Evelyn took Maya to the basement again, not to scare her but to show her something. The microfilm machine hummed as Evelyn scrolled through old articles and public notices. Maya watched without blinking. I've seen these before, Evelyn said. Maya's lips pressed together. In pieces. Evelyn paused the reel on a page with a small legal notice. A trust update from the Whitmore Foundation, dated shortly after the fire. Boring to most eyes. But there it was. One phrase that made Maya's posture shift. Contingency beneficiary, Maya read quietly. Evelyn nodded. It implies there was a backup heir. Maya's throat bobbed as she swallowed. Or a problem they needed to solve. Evelyn looked at Maya, really looked. How long have you known you were connected to them? Maya's answer came like a confession and a challenge at the same time. Since I was 11. Evelyn froze. 11? Maya's eyes stayed calm, but her voice turned rough around the edges. Mrs. Harlan drank too much one night and said I should be grateful. She said my family burned and I should have burned too. Then she laughed like it was a joke. The next morning she acted like it never happened. Evelyn's stomach dropped. That's... Don't, Maya cut in softly. Don't name it like naming it fixes it. Evelyn swallowed back anger and did what Maya needed. She listened. Maya explained in fragments, the only way she could. Foster homes that treated her like a paycheck. Adults who called her dramatic when she asked why her paperwork didn't match. A school counselor who believed the reports instead of the girl sitting in front of her. They always said I was lucky, Maya said. Lucky I wasn't on the street, lucky I had a roof, lucky I had someone willing to deal with me. Evelyn's voice came out steady but colder. And Mrs. Harlan made sure you felt like a burden. Maya nodded once. If I feel small, I don't ask questions. Evelyn stared at the screen again. The legal notice wasn't proof, but it was a signpost. She needed something concrete, something that connected Maya's identity to the Whitmores and connected Mrs. Harlan's guardianship to a benefit worth stealing. Then Maya said something that rearranged Evelyn's understanding of everything. The bread, Maya said. Evelyn turned. What about it? Maya's gaze didn't waver. I didn't steal because I couldn't stand the hunger. Evelyn's chest tightened. You said... I was hungry, Maya admitted, but I chose that bakery because the clerk always calls the officer. I chose it because you walk past there every Tuesday after closing the library. Evelyn's mouth opened, then closed. Maya continued, voice low and precise. I needed a witness who wasn't paid by the system. Someone who knows records. Someone who notices names. Evelyn's pulse thudded in her ears. You set it up. Maya didn't look proud. She looked exhausted. I set up a moment where you had to see me as a person, not a file. Evelyn sat down slowly, the weight of it hitting her. Maya hadn't just been surviving, she'd been strategizing. A teenager, underestimated by everyone, had engineered the one scenario that would force the truth to move. Evelyn's voice softened. Why me? Maya's eyes flickered just once with something like vulnerability. Because you're the only adult who ever looked at me, like I might be telling the truth. Silence settled between them. Then Evelyn stood again, decision made. All right, she said, if you're going to pull this thread, you're not doing it alone. Maya's shoulders lifted slightly, like she'd been carrying a heavy bag and someone had finally taken one handle. Outside, the town kept smiling. Fundraisers were planned, speeches were drafted. People slept easy under the belief that their community was good. They didn't know a librarian and an orphan were building a case out of paper cuts. And paper cuts, when there are enough of them, can bleed a giant. Maya's guardian chose the worst possible day to brag. It happened in the grocery store, under fluorescent lights and fake cheerful music. Mrs. Harlan was performing for a neighbor, one hand on her cart, the other holding a coupon booklet like a badge of virtue. "Fair's not easy," she sighed loudly just within Maya's hearing. "Taking in a girl like that, some kids are damaged, but I do my best." The neighbor frowned sympathetically. "You're such a saint." Maya stood 2 steps behind, holding a basket with 2 items Mrs. Harlan had approved: oatmeal and canned soup. It was always the cheapest food, always controlled, always portioned like Maya was a stray animal being trained. Mrs. Harlan turned slightly and smiled at Maya, sweet, sharp. "She's lucky to have me." Maya's face stayed blank, but inside something hard clicked into place. That night Maya didn't argue. She didn't push back. She didn't even ask for more food. She waited. Evelyn's work had reached a point where waiting was dangerous. She'd found a pattern. Small county payments routed through a private foundation account, then split into monthly deposits. Not illegal on its own, but the timing, always right after check-ins that looked falsified, felt like a machine turning. Evelyn needed the missing piece, a link between the Whitmore Foundation and the people who controlled Maya's file. So she did something librarians were trained not to do. She followed a record beyond the building. A donation plaque in the library lobby listed Whitmore Foundation Major Benefactor. Evelyn had never thought twice about it. Now she stared at it like it was a confession. At the next city council meeting, she sat in the back watching the faces. The judge was there, so was the foundation director. So was Mrs. Harlan, dressed like a concerned citizen. And then Evelyn saw him, a man with an easy smile, the kind that made people relax around him, the sort of man who shook hands and made promises and never seemed to sweat. His name appeared in the files as a signature. Not a county employee, not a caseworker, a reviewing party. Maya leaned close to Evelyn and whispered, "That's him." Evelyn's skin went cold. "You've seen him before." Maya's eyes stayed forward. "At the foundation events, he always pats my shoulder like I'm a mascot, like I'm proof they care." Evelyn swallowed rage and forced herself to breathe. "We need proof that stands on its own." Maya nodded once. "I know." That's when Maya revealed the second layer of her plan. She didn't just want to expose Mrs. Harlan. She didn't just want paperwork corrected. She wanted the town to watch the truth happen, because private justice could be buried. Public truth stuck. "The Whitmore Foundation Gala is in 2 weeks, Maya said. "They'll have a stage, a microphone, cameras." Evelyn stared at her. "You're going to confront them." Maya's expression was calm, almost gentle. "I'm going to introduce myself." Evelyn hesitated, torn between fear and admiration. "That's dangerous." Maya's voice lowered. "What's dangerous is letting them keep deciding who I am." They spent the next days collecting what they could without tipping their hand. Copies of inconsistent reports, screenshots of public notices, names of clerks and dates of closures, donation records, and a single audio file Evelyn found in a donated box of old tapes, unlabeled, forgotten. When Evelyn pressed play, she heard a woman's voice, trembling, whispering, panicked. "I can't keep doing this," the voice said. "They're changing the file, they're erasing the child." Evelyn's hands shook as she stopped the tape. Maya didn't flinch. She stared at the cassette like it was a key. "That's what I needed," she said. Evelyn's throat tightened. "Who is that?" Maya's eyes lifted. Someone who knew, someone who tried to speak. Evelyn swallowed hard, feeling the past stir like something waking up, because she recognized that voice. And she hated herself for it. The gala wasn't just going to be a confrontation. It was going to be a reckoning, one that would reach into Evelyn's own history whether she was ready or not. On the night of the gala, the town dressed up like nothing ugly had ever happened. The Whitmore Foundation ballroom glowed with soft lighting and polished smiles. People sipped sparkling drinks and made small talk about community and second chances, as if those were decorations you could hang on a wall. Maya walked in wearing a simple dark dress that Evelyn had helped her find. Nothing flashy, nothing begging for attention, but she didn't need flash. Her presence did the work. Mrs. Harlan spotted her immediately. Her eyes narrowed, then widened with irritation masked as concern. She glided over, placing a hand on Maya's shoulder like she owned her. "Sweetheart," Mrs. Harlan cooed loud enough for nearby donors to hear. "You shouldn't wander off. You know these events can be overwhelming." Maya turned her head slowly. "You're right," she said, voice soft. "They can be." Mrs. Harlan's smile held, but her fingers tightened. "Let's go home." Maya didn't move. "Not yet." Evelyn stood a few feet away, clutching a slim folder and feeling her heartbeat in her throat. She had spent her life staying quiet when quiet was safe. Tonight, quiet would be a choice. The foundation director stepped onto the stage to give the opening remarks. He spoke about legacy, about how the Whitmores believed in lifting others up. The crowd applauded at the right moments, like trained hands. Maya waited until the applause faded. Then she walked toward the stage. At first, people assumed it was part of the program, a success story, a foster youth testimonial, something heartwarming. A staff member tried to intercept her. Maya didn't push past. She simply looked at him and said, "I'm on the list." He hesitated. That split-second hesitation was all she needed. Maya climbed the steps and stood beside the microphone. The director leaned in, smiling politely. "And you are?" Maya looked across the room, at Mrs. Harlan, at the man with the easy smile, at the donors who loved stories with clean endings. She spoke clearly. "My name is Maya Whitmore." The room shifted. You could feel it, a tiny tremor of recognition, confusion, and discomfort. The director's smile tightened. "That's a meaningful name in this town." Maya nodded. "It should be." Evelyn moved closer, ready to step in if someone tried to pull Maya away. But Maya wasn't trembling now. Hunger had taught her how to endure. Neglect had taught her how to plan. And being underestimated had given her the sharpest advantage of all. Nobody saw her coming. Maya lifted a single sheet of paper. 15 years ago, she said, this town was told a child didn't survive the Whitmore fire. She paused, letting the words land without drama. "I'm here," she continued. "So either I'm a miracle or someone lied." A few people laughed nervously. Others stared like they were watching an accident in slow motion. Mrs. Harlan took a step forward, her voice rising. "Maya, stop, you're confused, you don't understand." Maya turned slightly, meeting her eyes. "I understand hunger. I understand locks on pantries. I understand being paraded as a charity project while you collect money for it." Gasps, small, shocked, the kind people made when truth stepped too close. The man with the easy smile stood, still smiling. "This isn't the place for accusations," he said smoothly. "Let's handle this privately." Maya's expression didn't change. "No," she said, simple as that. "Private is how it stayed hidden." Evelyn stepped forward then, holding up the cassette player she'd brought, old school, impossible to deny. Her voice shook, but she spoke anyway. "There's a recording," Evelyn said, a staff member confessing that records were altered, that a child was erased. The director's eyes flashed with alarm. "Evelyn, please." Evelyn pressed play. A woman's voice filled the ballroom, thin but unmistakable. "They're changing the file. They're erasing the child." Evelyn's stomach dropped as her own past cracked open. She saw herself years ago, younger, afraid, hearing the same voice, and choosing silence because silence felt safer than truth. The room erupted in whispers. Phones came out. Donors leaned toward each other, suddenly less interested in champagne. Maya held up her folder. "This isn't a story," she said. "It's a trail. Dates that don't match, reports signed by people who weren't there, payments that move when check-ins are completed." She looked directly at the man with the easy smile. "And signatures that keep appearing." His smile faltered for the first time. Because Maya didn't come with rage. She came with receipts. And in a town built on appearances, proof was the one thing that could collapse the whole stage. The next morning, the town woke up pretending it had slept. But the truth doesn't disappear just because people close their eyes. By noon, the foundation's phones were flooded. Local reporters hovered outside the county building. People who'd smiled through the gala now spoke in clipped sentences, suddenly concerned about transparency. Mrs. Harlan tried to keep control the only way she knew. She went to the police station and claimed Maya had run away and was unstable. The old narrative, polished and ready. It didn't work, because Evelyn had already filed copies of the inconsistencies with an outside hotline that handled public integrity complaints. She didn't need to shout. She didn't need to accuse anyone on social media. She simply submitted documentation where it couldn't be quietly buried. And Maya did the most unexpected thing. She didn't hide. She went to school. She walked the halls like a normal student, even as whispers followed her like shadows. Some kids looked at her with awe. Others looked at her like she'd broken a sacred rule: don't embarrass the adults. A teacher pulled her aside gently. "Are you okay?" Maya's answer was calm. "I'm hungry," she said honestly, "but I'm okay." That sentence hit harder than any speech. Hunger wasn't just a physical thing in Maya's life. It was a symbol of what people allowed when it was convenient. That afternoon, Mrs. Harlan was escorted out of her home by authorities. No dramatic takedown, no spectacle, just the quiet, unmistakable clink of consequences. Her neighbors watched from behind curtains, the same people who had called her a saint. The man with the easy smile resigned, for personal reasons. He tried to frame it as dignity. It didn't hold. The paper trail was too clean now, the questions too loud. But the biggest shift happened inside the library, when Maya met Evelyn in the back office. Away from cameras, away from town gossip, away from applause. Evelyn looked older than she had a week ago, like the truth had stripped something away. "I owe you something," she said. Maya sat across from her, quiet. Evelyn's fingers trembled on the edge of the desk. "That voice on the tape," she admitted, "was someone I knew. Years ago, she tried to tell me records were being manipulated. I was scared. I did nothing." Maya didn't blink. "You weren't the one who did it." Evelyn's eyes filled. "But I helped it happen by staying quiet." Maya's gaze softened, just a fraction. "Then you're doing something now." Evelyn swallowed. "I'm sorry, Maya." Maya's voice was low, steady. "I didn't come to you because you were perfect. I came to you because I thought you might choose right, when it counted." Evelyn exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for 15 years. Then Maya reached into her pocket and placed a small pendant on the desk. Tarnished silver, simple, the kind of thing a child might cling to. "My mother's," Maya said. "It's the only piece I had that felt real." Evelyn stared at it. "Why are you giving it to me?" Maya's answer wasn't sentimental. It was precise. "Because you kept the truth long enough for it to matter. Now you can keep this without hiding it." Evelyn's voice cracked. "Where will you go?" Maya stood. "Somewhere my name doesn't feel like a dare." Evelyn rose too, instinctively wanting to offer a home, a room, a rescue. But Maya didn't want that kind of ending. She wanted something harder. She wanted ownership of her life. At the door, Maya paused and looked back. "People will ask what you did," she said. "Tell them you finally stopped shelving the wrong stories." Then she left. No dramatic music, no victory speech. Just the quiet footsteps of a girl who had turned hunger into strategy, shame into leverage, and silence into a weapon that struck back. The town could keep its gala. Maya had already taken what it really guarded, the illusion that power always wins. So here's what this story really leaves behind. A teenager stole bread, and the town treated her like a villain. A guardian wore kindness like a costume. A foundation sold legacy while hiding the mess under the stage. And a librarian, someone most people overlook, became the one person willing to say, "No, the file doesn't get to decide who she is." Maya didn't win because she screamed the loudest. She won because she moved calmly, chose her moment, and forced the truth into the light where it couldn't be folded away again. And the most provoking part, Maya didn't stay to enjoy anyone's pity. She didn't wait for a perfect family moment or a neat bow. She walked away with her name intact, leaving the town with something it couldn't donate its way out of: accountability. Now I want you to sit with one question after the video ends. How many good communities are only good because the people who suffer inside them stay quiet? If you felt that, drop a comment. What would you have done if you were Evelyn, when you first saw the wrong name on the form? And if you were Maya, would you have chosen patience, or would you have burned it all down faster? Hit like if you want more stories where justice isn't sugary. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And share this with someone who's ever been judged by a single moment, because sometimes the smallest act isn't a mistake. Sometimes it's the first move.